1, 2, the cut down. And we have the announcement of Samsung's most popular range, the Galaxy A series, specifically the A52 5G as well as the A72. And these phones are great, but they're confusing, and there's some decisions that I've made that are a contradiction to what they said, and I think it's a downright out slap in the face of the flagship users. And we're going to dive into it, and we're going to make it a quick one, but these tend to be Samsung's most popular selling phones. They do tend to be. The A series, they shift, man. They shift. This is the phone that really caused companies like OnePlus to get back and make phones like the OnePlus Nord, because the phones like the A series were eating up OnePlus sales, you know? So we're going to dive into it, and we're going to look at the specs breakdown, have my thoughts and opinions on it, and just see some things on why they made certain decisions that to me just don't really add up and don't really make that much sense in that retrospect. Here we are. Shout out to Super Saf. Got this tweet from him. Tweeted on the 17th of March, which is within this week, 4 days ago as of this recording. We are looking at the Galaxy A52 5G. 6.5 inch, full high definition, super AMOLED display, 120 Hz. Seems like near enough the same panel as what you find on the S20 FE. Quad camera system, 64 megapixels with OIS. Definitely doing pixel binning 4:1, 16 megapixels. Ultra wide, 12 megapixels. Oh, the dreaded macro and depth sensors. Oh, why? 5 megapixel macro, 5 megapixel depth, all in the name of just putting quad there. 32 megapixel selfie, Qualcomm Snapdragon 750G. Okay, G always stands for the gaming, from what I remember. 6 to 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes and 256 gigabytes of read-only memory, ROM, internal storage, and guess what appears? A micro SD card. That's strike one. Guess what then appears? A 3.5mm headphone jack. That's strike two. And guess what? 15-watt charger included. That is strike three. £399 starting price. Let's go back. Shout out to Tommy. A72, 5000 mAh battery, 90 Hz Super AMOLED. Another thing that doesn't make any sense to me. Same camera array, except for the telephoto. So instead of using a depth, they put a telephoto. Much smarter. Macro to an extent, but the macro, if they really wanted to, they could have integrated it into the ultra wide. We've seen that before. But the low refresh rate display, strange. And this is technically Samsung's first 90 Hz panel. That's very telling. I just clocked it in my mind. That's Samsung's first 90 Hz panel. Again, bigger battery though. Micro SD, up to 1 terabyte support. Another one, 32 megapixels, IP67 here. Oh, this is strange. This is strange. What we're gonna do? We're gonna go into GSM Arena. This is where some of the confusing things are for me. Yeah, let's go to differences and let's try and go through this slowly. Piano, slowly. Take our time. This is a more expensive phone. The A72 makes sense in the name, you expect it to, but some of the properties of this phone are inferior to the A52 in my personal opinion. So it's a bigger display, but it's 90 Hz instead of 120. Same peak brightness. So technically the A52 has the better display. Weird. Same 1080p resolution. Processing power wise, I do believe that the Snapdragon 750G, it's the more powerful processor. The A52 has the better display. It's more powerful in terms of processing power. Very strange. Whereas the camera is overall makes more sense on the A72 because of the telephoto rather than using that depth. And then the battery capacity, you are getting more battery, and potentially it's going to last longer because obviously the processor is not as power hungry, even though it's not as powerful, and you are getting a fast charging in there. Well, you're getting a charger, but it supports. There's the price difference. That's already confusing. This is where it's confusing. That's very confusing, this lineup of these two phones. I don't know what happened with the decision making. I don't know what happened with the decision making in terms of this. But I don't know. I didn't see many people comment. This is Samsung's first 90 hertz panel that they've put on any of their smartphones. If I don't stand corrected. Parts of this phone are very contradictory to Samsung's messaging, especially what they did with the January release of the S21 series. What I don't understand is what justifies the cheaper phones that sell the most that could cause more environmental damage to still have chargers included. One. What, the flagship phones are not useful to have micro SD cards no more? No, Samsung, nah. I thought the headphone port was dead. Somehow you've been able to resurrect it like the Undertaker, nah. Really? And you couldn't put 90 hertz display panels in all those previous phones and actually give us the in-between with 90 hertz and quad high definition from what we were asking before? Nah, this is suspect. This is suspect. This is suspect. I don't get the decision making. I've always said it, the more expensive phones are the ones that need to have the things in there, and the cheaper, more selling phones that have more margins where you can make the phones cheaper and you can count on people having the older devices or spending a little bit extra to get up there. You're including the stuff in there. You're including the headphone port. Shout out to Concept Create, he's going to be happy about that to rant if I'm ranting. You're including the charger still. You're including the micro SD card. And now somehow you can put a 90 hertz panel when you've been trying to make it seem like you couldn't. Yo, bro, I don't know. And then comparing the two phones together, I don't know why many people haven't clocked this yet. But to me, the A52 seems like the better phone. Genuinely speaking, it seems like the better phone. You're getting a better display. What, 6.5, 6.7? It's still a large screen phone enough. You're getting the charger included, you're getting a more powerful processor, you're getting a much better display by the looks of it because you're getting more high refresh rate, same brightness. Yeah, I don't know. No. I don't know. And looking at both the selfie cameras, from what I'm seeing, both the selfie cameras support 4K UHD 30 frames a second. So what's the cutback? Why would you go for the A72? It can't just be purely for battery life. It can't be. That's not a good enough justification. Why would you get? I need to understand it. Why would you get the A72? Why would you get the A72? There's no incentive for me to get the A72. I'm getting a slower processor. I'm getting a low refresh rate display. What am I actually getting more of the A72? From the outside in looking in, that A72 is making less sense to me. It's making absolutely less sense to me. It can't just be based on the differences I've looked at, battery and the fact that I'm getting a telephoto camera. That's not good enough for me to be getting an inferior display and an inferior processor. That's nuts. The phones will sell. The A series always sell well. The A52 is going to be the one that slaps and sells the most, for sure. You've got the Samsung branding. It's using Gorilla Glass 5. You've got a high refresh rate, same display as what you get with the S20 FE, 120 Hz Super AMOLED, and it's also a peak brightness of 800 nits, which is great for that price point especially. It's near enough a good and adequate enough dual camera system. Forget the depth and the macro, especially the depth. Selfie camera shoots 4K video, which I'm very adamant on doing, and at that price, that's impressive. And it's a 4,500 milliamp hour battery, which is more than adequate enough. So yeah, just from the outside looking in, the A72 is not making that much sense. And also, I'm just not liking, and I believe Tekken Mike is the one that tweeted this out, I'm just not liking the fact that the confusion of what they're doing is like the flagship. They want to copy what Apple are doing with taking stuff away unnecessarily for the sake of it, but somehow the mid-range ones still get to have all these premium features. So what you're trying to tell people, if you go lower, you'll get a much better rounded experience. That should not be the case. That can't be the case. That can't be the narrative that you're giving, not especially when it's only 2 months apart from what you did in January to now. This makes no sense. Keep the same energy. Don't include a charger. Don't add the headphone port. Don't give the micro SD card, and don't pretend you can't be putting 90 Hz panels on certain phones like the normal Note 20 that got slated compared to the Ultra. If that had a 1080p 90 Hz display, I believe the conversation would have been slightly different. I don't know. I'm impressed with I'm impressed with what Samsung does in general, but from the outside looking in, without having hands-on with these phones, this is a weird thing I'm seeing right here, and I don't think many people have been calling it out. So I thought, let me just interject and share my 2 cents on it on the Samsung Galaxy A52 5G and the A72. Weird.